And for me, it's very similar because I was the young person, and luckily I got thrown into all of these things. So from a very young age, I was the one shouting from the rooftops, like, "Hey, we're cool. You please ask, please involve us. Like, we don't want to destroy the brand. We don't want to ruin anything. We actually just want to be at the table and bring all the knowledge we have as young people." And so now I'm just carrying the torch forward, and like. You'll see we have a big alumni community, and it's so nice to be able to just empower the young people to speak up and then let them shine in a way which is not when you work for a longer time. Sometimes the spark. I feel that now. I'm like, oh, the spark is gone. Let's bring it back to the young people.
All right, next one's for you. What's the biggest challenge people have with advocacy in general and youth advocacy in particular?
Yeah, so I think I feel like we all agree it's pretty scary to speak up about topics, but no matter which topic is out there, there's always someone who's going to dislike it, who's not going to agree, and then if it's out there on socials, there might be like a backlash and all of this. And so I think for youth advocacy, how I now see it is, in the past I always thought like youth advocates are just young people, but what we want to do now is it's actually reframing that everyone's a youth advocate. So the word youth doesn't define how old you are when you're advocating for youth. And I think that's something which is not so common out there, because if we talk about youth advocacy, everyone just thinks young people, and we agree that they should be there. But the most important thing is that everyone has the young person in mind at the end of the day. So everyone's advocating for young people. And so I think this is like currently the biggest challenge, to do what I mentioned in the beginning, the mindset shift, that I would love for every single one of you walking out of the room, putting on your LinkedIn, I'm a youth advocate. Because I hope you all are. I hope this is why you're here. And I think previously that was not a thing everyone would have done, because it felt like the word youth is just reserved for young people. And so also kind of the speaking up on socials generally, on like your own profiles, on the company profiles, I think that's pretty scary. But
and it's tough, right? I mean, in probably one of the more politically polarized environments we've ever seen in the world, it's hard to speak up on certain issues and know that people are going to understand that you just have young people's best intentions at heart, right? That you're not advocating for a particular political view, but that you. So we've been working on sort of what are the things that everybody can agree on, right, for young people. So like every young person should have an education. Right? There should not be a young person in the world that doesn't get to have an education. Young people should have full bellies, places to sleep, right? Safety. What are those general things that we can all agree on? And then we can have that conversation. And we don't have to take it into any sort of political realm if we can just sort of agree on some of those basics. So that's what Sarah and I have been working on. We're going to finish that in the next couple months.
Yes, okay. Yeah. 2 more questions, and then we go into
asking
so
you. You haven't picked your one yet that you're answering. This is a little 2-minute warning.
Okay, so because our title was so long and it had all the words possible in it, we thought, a lot of people ask us, so okay, I love all these words in the title, but how do they actually connect? So what's the connection between entrepreneurship, diplomacy, and which leads then to peace? So Terry, I'll give you that very tricky question.
So let me just back up a little bit and explain that we think of entrepreneurship as something that you're going to go into and out of throughout your life. It's not necessarily that you choose an entrepreneurial path and then you're done, right? You may go to work for an entrepreneur, you may partner with another entrepreneur, you may go to work for a big corporation and then come back to entrepreneurship. You may be doing them side by side. You may be working somewhere while you're building your business. And so we think of entrepreneurship and work readiness as really intertwined, right? So we don't really separate the two. Now imagine a community where there's 40% unemployment, 70% unemployment. When people don't have an opportunity to have meaningful work, to do something that they're proud of and that makes enough money for them to keep their families safe and warm, there's going to be chaos. There's going to be disruption. There's eventually probably going to be violence. And so we think that peace starts with people having meaningful work. And that might be through building your own business. That might be through taking over a business somebody else built. That might be through going to work for somebody who has built a business. Whatever that looks like, without that, you can't have peace. With that, you should have peace. You won't always, but without it, you absolutely can't. So I'd start there.
Yeah, totally. And you'll also see, so Jay Wattwhite's been nominated 4 times for the Nobel Peace Prize, which is very exciting. And so it's for the young people out there. And honestly, this is why we also work on, okay, how can we make people more advocating for youth? Yes, the organization was nominated, but it's for the young people we serve every single day. Okay, last one.
All right, so last one. This is for me to ask you, what are we getting right and what are we getting wrong about how we see and how we talk about Gen Z and Gen Alpha?
I'm very curious about your answer. So I'm millennial, right? So I'm also already out of I'm like, oh, there's 2 more generations. I'm like, when did that happen? And I feel, I see some people nodding. I'm like, oh, we're not the youngsters in the room? No. So I strongly believe, because I work a lot with our youth, so I'm working directly with our alumni, and most of them are Gen Z now, Gen Alpha. So at least in Europe, and Terry said you hear this also sometimes, there's this they're very lazy. They don't want to invest work into actually making things happen, and then they just want to have time off to have mental health and well-being. So this is kind of the current bubble which is floating around Europe, honestly. And I would strongly disagree, because there's so many talented young people out there, but what they don't want to do is actually burn out and then not being able to do the work. So this is from my experience. They're much more pushing back on hey, let's do project A and let's not do project B, because there's just so much energy in a body and I can't deliver it all. Versus, for example, when I started, I just pushed through it all, and then I figured, I'm like, oh my god, I went through the point of, and now I have 0 energy, I'm not sure how to do it. So I think this is the biggest misconception. What I feel is happening, that Gen Z, from our perspective, it's running to the one side, and then Gen Alpha it's with all the generations, they're coming in and then they're picking up all the pieces, which are, then they're all coming together. So that would be my take.
Yeah, I think one of the things it's a little unfair of how we think about Gen Z and Gen Alpha is that we think they're going to save us, right? So boomers and Gen X and millennials are like, it's all okay. We got these young people, they're going to come in, they're going to make it all right. And while I do believe that, I absolutely believe that, it's not really fair to them. It's a lot to put on them, right? We get to sort of mess up the world and they get to come in and make it all better. So I wish we would talk about what we can do to make their vision come true, versus what they have to do to live in a different kind of world. The thing that I think we're really getting right about them is that I love that so when I came in, I was third wave feminism, right? So I was coming of age. I graduated from college in 1989 and joined a Japanese corporation, multinational corporation that was that employed 10,000 people. And I had majored in engineering, whole different story. But I was the first female engineer ever hired at this huge Japanese electronics company. And I worked in